In every era, God has chosen men and women to serve the needs of his people. Such a servant was Martin Luther King, Jr., whose birth we celebrate. We are deeply thankful for the life of this 20th century prophet. May the deep love that Dr. King had for all people be released in us, that we too might work miracles in the lives of those who continue to hate.
Dr. King taught that only love can overcome hatred, bitterness, and fear.
May his struggle for social transformation continue in this generation. May all people come to believe that with perseverance we shall overcome.
But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream.
May the work of Dr. King continue to eradicate racial injustice and its ungodly consequences.
Dr. King pursued his dream for racial equality by appealing to the conscience of his enemies.
May we continue to cultivate the nonviolent discipline of Dr. King, abandoning unrestrained acts of force.
He taught us that a heart full of grace and love is just as important as an education.
May the spirit of Dr. King continue to flow through our daily living.
He believed in self-respect and dignity, even though he knew that there would be difficult days ahead.
May we have the courage of Dr. King as we continue to stand up for justice, reconciliation, and truth, despite challenge and controversy.
Dr. King said that war is never a victory, regardless of the outcome.
May the peace of the risen Christ cause the fury of war to vanish from the face of the earth.
Dr. King went to the mountaintop. He saw the promised land.
And he reassured us that we will get there one day. God of glory, be with us on the journey. Amen. You may be seated. One of the great blessings of being pastor of this congregation is that one does not have to do a lot of explaining about being prophetic. This congregation doesn't deal in just little nice religious formalities. We, as the saying goes, keep it real. And so, in that spirit, it is a joy to be with you this morning. We worship God today on the Sunday before the U.S. national holiday to honor the life and faith and fellowship of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Followers of Jesus have long viewed Sunday as our worship day because the New Testament accounts about Jesus report that his resurrection happened on that day of the week. You recall that the Sabbath in the Jewish tradition is on Saturday. It begins at evening time on Friday, continuing into Saturday. The same is tradition in the Islamic world. It was the resurrection of Jesus that pushed the first day of the week into the prominence of followers of Jesus so that it became our Sabbath day. It became our worship day. The Lord's Day, we come to know as Sunday because of the resurrection of Jesus. Next to Easter, Resurrection Sunday, the Sunday before the King holiday may very well be the Sunday cherished most by followers of Jesus who believe in social justice. Now, I know Mother's Day is a big day. I know Mother's Day is a big day, okay? I said, I know. I'm in a congregation full of mothers. I know that Mother's Day happens on Sunday, and I am not going to be misunderstood. I know Mother's Day is a big day. However, all right, somebody say howsomever. However, the Sunday before the King holiday may very well outpace Mother's Day in terms of its global significance. Now, we send Mother's Day gifts and flowers and all that kind of stuff on Mother's Day, and we do it rightly. But you don't get a day off for Mother's Day, do you? It's Mother's Day. Keep it real. Keep it real. After all the FTD flowers and gifts and cards are given, Mother's Day is not a national holiday. Not in any nation, let alone in this nation. Mother's Day is not a local holiday. It's not a state holiday. And Mother's Day is not recognized around the world. Mother's Day is recognized in this country, but it's not recognized around the world. So I am going to repeat, next to Easter, Resurrection Sunday, the Sunday before the King holiday may be the Sunday cherished most by followers of Jesus who believe in social justice, as well as people who are not followers of Jesus who believe in social justice. This is because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., unlike other persons for whom a U.S. holiday is named, is remembered for his devotion to social justice. He's never sought nor held any public office. Dr. King did not serve in the military. Dr. King was not financially wealthy based on the standards of his day. Yet his fierce and nonviolent advocacy for social justice has left a more lasting and profound impact on life in the United States and the rest of the world than did the careers of the presidents and generals of his era, or even since then, for that matter. We do Dr. King's memory a disservice, however, if we ignore or forget that he always labored and agitated and demonstrated and spoke and protested based on his identity with and being a minister in the religion of Jesus. In that sense, Dr. King not only rose above the politicians of his time and ours, he rose above the religious leaders of his time and ours in the United States and across the world. Yes, Reverend Billy Graham was welcomed and held evangelical rallies in cities across the United States and was hosted in the White House by various presidents. Yes, the Pope can come and go across the world. But Reverend Graham's ministry is seldom, if ever, remembered for having challenged the conscience of people in the United States and around the world concerning inequality, war, racism, greed, poverty, and the suffering people experience because of those realities. Followers of Jesus also do Dr. King a disservice if we do not view the conditions and the situations and the experience of our time as he did, through the lens of the love and justice ethic of the Hebrew Bible and the life and teachings of Jesus that are preserved for us in the New Testament Gospels. We should take pause and avoid the common mistake of remembering Dr. King as a, quote, civil rights leader. I know that's popular for us to say. But Dr. King was not merely a civil rights leader. Dr. King never held himself out as a civil rights leader. Dr. King held himself out as a preacher of the religion of Jesus. In that sense, he was a prophet from God and a disciple of Jesus. King was a preacher. He did not hold himself out to be anything other than a preacher. He served with his pastor as co-pastor, his father as co-pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. He became the co-founder of and the chief theologian for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference because he was a prophet in the tradition of Jesus. And so if we do not remember Jesus and his ministry when we honor Dr. King, we do Dr. King a disservice. You understand? Because Dr. King's whole ministry was wrapped up in the religion of Jesus. We do a disservice to King if we think of him as just a civil rights leader. We do a disservice to the love and justice ethics of God that Jesus lived and taught, and for which Jesus and Dr. King ultimately died, if we just think of him as a civil rights leader. And the lesson we read together from Luke's gospel bears that out. It bears out with very striking, if not uncomfortable, clarity the relevancy of Dr. King's ministry, not only to his time, but also to ours. Many people are familiar with the saying that no one can serve two masters. But I suspect that few of them can associate it with this lesson that we read from the teaching of Jesus about God, faith, justice, and prosperity. In proclaiming the lesson about the rich man and the pauper named Lazarus, Jesus was expounding on the fundamental moral, ethical, theological, and social view that knowing and loving God involves becoming one in fellowship and peace with our neighbors, including persons whose situations are very different from our own. Jesus set up the lesson. Jesus set up the lesson about the rich man and Lazarus with the following statement. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest, look at that word, dishonest, in a very little is dishonest also in much. No slave can serve two masters. That is the setup for no slave can serve two masters. For a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. The King James renders that you cannot serve God and mammon. And then we read these words. Check this. The Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all this, and they ridiculed him. So he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves in the sight of others, but God knows your hearts. For that which is prized by human beings is an abomination in the sight of God. We find the lesson about the rich man and Lazarus after reading that the Pharisees, described by Luke as lovers of money, ridiculed Jesus for saying you cannot serve God and wealth. Nothing in the lesson about the rich man and Lazarus suggests that the rich man did not believe in God. Neither the rich man nor Lazarus is identified as religious in this text. We read nothing about during their lifetimes about them going to church, reading scripture, praying, tithing. Hello? We don't know whether they had a big A Bible or not. We just read that this is the lesson that Jesus gives. What the lesson emphasizes is that the rich man enjoyed wealth with complete disregard for Lazarus and his miserable plight. That point is highlighted when the lesson mentions how the dogs showed compassion toward Lazarus while licking his wounds, while Lazarus was unable to even depend on table scraps from the rich man. Lazarus was conspicuous in his poverty and misery. The rich man was conspicuous in his luxury and comfort. That's the two big issues in this lesson. The rich man only noticed and named Lazarus in the afterlife, when his situation was defined by agonizing misery while Lazarus was at peace and comfortable. Then, and only then in the lesson Jesus gives, the rich man who refused to offer table scraps to relieve Lazarus from the agony of starvation when they were neighbors wanted Lazarus to provide a drop of water to relieve the agony of his thirst. The rich man pursued wealth throughout his lifetime. He enjoyed the comforts of that wealth. Nowhere in the lesson do we get the suggestion that the rich man paid any regard for Lazarus and the conspicuous misery of his suffering. Nowhere does the lesson show that the rich man gave any attention to the clear inequality of their situations. It is striking that Jesus begins the lesson and says, there was a rich man who dined in comfort and was dressed in purple. Purple was high-class clothes. Feasted sumptuously. In this regard, Jesus used the rich man in this lesson to condemn the Pharisees, the religious folks who were lovers of money. This is the way Jesus expounded on his teaching that you cannot serve God and mammon. You cannot serve God and wealth. The lesson about the rich man and Lazarus was how Jesus tried, in the way of Reverend Dr. J. Alfred Smith Sr., to make it plain. You recall Reverend Dr. Smith say, I'm trying to make it plain. Am I making it plain? Jesus was trying to make it plain, so he gives this lesson about the rich man and Lazarus. What Jesus made plain was that the Pharisees, like the rich man in this lesson, justified themselves in the sight of others because they were rich. But Jesus said, but God knows your hearts. For what is prized by human beings is an abomination in the sight of God. That point is profoundly made in the teaching about the rich man and Lazarus. While the formerly sick and starving Lazarus is envisioned in the afterlife feasting in blissful fellowship with Abraham, patriarch of the Hebrew faith and people, the rich man is in torment. The lesson begins, there was a certain rich man who feasted sumptuously and was dressed in purple, and at his gate, literally outside the front gate, outside the walled-in community, outside the gated community, outside his zip code. Hello? Understand this. Outside his income bracket. Outside the Trump Tower area code. In the S-hole category that the fellow talked about was Lazarus. Okay? Understand the relevancy of this text to where we are. At his gate was a fellow that the rich man refused to notice. He knew where he was because he was at his gate. He had to go out the gate to get past Lazarus. He could not go anywhere without bypassing Lazarus. As a matter of fact, he probably had to rearrange the exterior of his mansion to keep Lazarus from being obvious, because you understand, Lazarus folks have to be cordoned away. In some communities, folks don't talk about it, in some communities, poor people are actually bussed out of town to avoid having too many poor people in town, because they don't want the poor people in town messing up the neighborhood. You recall in Little Rock, they didn't want to have poor people fed. That's Lazarus, okay? Because at the gate, it doesn't look good for tourism. We don't want our economic development movement to be messed up with these Lazarus-looking folk. So you can't be feeding these folk. We got table scraps, but we don't want the table scraps shared here. Now you can have Riverfest all you want to, be drunk as you want to, and eat all you want to, but no. If you're poor and broke, no. And then we have this figure of speech, Abraham's bosom in the lesson, indicating that Lazarus in the afterlife had a place of safety and security in the afterlife. In drastic contrast to his situation in life, Lazarus in the afterlife is safe and comfortable. In drastic contrast in the afterlife, the rich man is tormented and miserable. The figure of speech, Abraham's bosom, is drawn from the ancient tradition, the banquet custom of reclining on couches during meals. During meals, even in some settings now, you will see in certain settings, people eat reclining, and during those situations, the head of one person would reach the chest of a next person if they were leaning over. So if you're sitting down and you're at table reclining, like this, and you reach out to get food, the person next to you is literally, you're on their chest. That's Abraham's bosom. That's the bosom. Okay? You follow me? To engage in conversation with the person next to you, one would lean your head over to that person's chest. It was a sign of high honor if you were seated next to a celebrated guest at a banquet. But to be seated next to the host was the place of highest honor. So in the lesson Jesus gives, Lazarus, the fellow who was outside the house, outside the yard, outside the gate in life, is seated next to the host in the house, at the table, in the afterlife. In proclaiming this lesson, Jesus dramatically not only showed the great moral and ethical and social distance between the rich man and Lazarus, Jesus declared that the rich man was eternally out of fellowship with the entire community of the faithful. You understand? Lazarus died, and he is identified as having gone to the bosom of Abraham. Who was Abraham? Abraham is the patriarch of the faithful. And so the rich man is outside the family of the faithful, and Lazarus is seen in this lesson as next to, in the seat of closest honor, the patriarch of the faithful. Jesus is just making a lesson. This is Jesus doing a nursery rhyme. This is Jesus doing a tale, because he's making it plain. Hello? The lesson was a powerful condemnation of the Pharisees, religious folks who love wealth, as being hypocrites. Remember what Jesus said, whoever is faithful in a very little. Read that word carefully. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest, faithful. Dishonest. In other words, Jesus said, hey, you look like you're faithful, but you're actually hypocrites. You're actually dishonest. Jesus termed religion that loves wealth dishonest, and then went one step further. In Luke 16:15, he adds, is an abomination in the sight of God. I wish some of the folks who talked about abomination would cite this text. You understand? This is the one passage in the Bible, in the New Testament, where Jesus uses the word abomination. Hello? You didn't talk about abomination, who you're sleeping with. Hello? I dare you to read the New Testament and find abomination used by Jesus in the context of your relationships, in or out of marriage. But what Jesus does is he uses this word abomination in the context of talking about the hypocrisy of claiming to love God when actually what you love is money. And Jesus used that word and the lesson of the rich man and Lazarus to drive the point home, to make it plain. More than any other person in recent memory, Martin Luther King Jr. exposed the hypocrisy, the abominable hypocrisy, the dishonesty of our religion and our nation. Unlike the current President of the United States, Dr. King did not see or speak about poor people, unprivileged people in vulgar terms. Unlike the self-professed religious conservatives who've been the chief supporters and defenders of so much of the hateful policies of our country, Dr. King did not resist the chance to speak up for poor people. He spoke up for poor people. He spoke up for sick people. He spoke up for oppressed people. He spoke up for people who suffer from the effects of wars. And so we do Dr. King's life and ministry a tremendous injustice by allowing his memory to be defined by anything less than the love and justice imperatives in the religion of Jesus that he lived and he preached. When we follow the love and justice ethics of Jesus that Dr. King lived and preached, we'll do more than just have annual day-long days of service. I get so tired of hearing folks talk about having a day of service. How can you raise hell, ignore the poor all year long? Celebrate when you have a tax bill that gives money to billionaires and takes social services from poor people and say you're going to sanctify the day of service and honor Dr. King. It is dishonesty. It is hypocrisy. And it is especially dishonest and hypocrisy when folks whose liberation has been made possible by King get involved in being part of it. Hello? Dr. King's life ought to be more than just a parade. Walk around shouting and hollering and all that kind of stuff. When we follow the love and justice ethics of Dr. King, we will do more than simply walk around talking about, I have a dream. We will join voices and forces to denounce and condemn and resist the religion of empire and fear and greed and hypocrisy and violence that threaten people not only in this nation but across the world. People like Lazarus, people who live in conspicuous misery while other people celebrate conspicuous consumption. We will do more than have a day of service when half of Puerto Rico has no drinking water and does not have. We will do more than just have a day of service when people in Flint, Michigan are still drinking bottled water. When we follow love and justice imperatives in the religion of Jesus, Dr. King preached and lived, we'll denounce President Trump and every other person who thinks that and speaks about any child of God as being from a shithole country. No. I did use the word. Because you see, we in the name of Jesus must denounce people who speak about other children of God as being from places that are essentially toilets. God did not create any toilet people. And for the people who call themselves followers of Jesus to be supporting a politician who refers to other people, whole countries of people, as being toilet people is not only hypocrisy, it is an abomination. So you can get mad if you want to because I used the word shithole country, but he did it and folks elected him. We preachers ought to do it and say we ought to denounce him. We ought to denounce him. No, not because that's a good word. We ought to say, how dare anybody, let alone someone who calls himself the leader of a nation that calls itself lovers of people who are poor and tired and huddled masses teeming to be free. How dare anybody refer to people as toilet people from S-hole countries? We should not only cringe about that kind of language, we should condemn the politics that make it possible for somebody to be elected to lead a nation with that attitude. We should not only cringe about people who, like the rich man, live with callous disregard and outright disdain and hellish hypocrisy toward our neighbors who suffer. We should confront and challenge them and the rest of our society. We should challenge and confront our imperial lust for wealth while refusing to share with the people of Haiti. The people of Haiti aren't poor because there's no wealth in the Western Hemisphere. They're poor because every president in the history of this country has refused to do anything to invest in Haiti. Haiti's poverty is not an accident. It is a consequence of our imperialism. El Salvador is not an accident. The war in El Salvador was financed by our military. Our military was training folks to go to El Salvador and create havoc. Africa is not a problem because of Africans. Africa is a problem because of colonialists from Europe and this country. We will confess that President Trump's spirit resembles that of a rich man Jesus spoke about. And that is enabled and supported and defended by folks who carry around Bibles, have big steeple churches, sing, "How great thou art, God bless America, my country 'tis of thee," and put the flag of the United States above the cross of Jesus. And then we will, in the spirit of Jesus and Dr. King, position ourselves with the Lazarus people of our time and place. We will do this because we will not settle for a religion that is simply all Bible and no living. You understand? I love Bible study, but I'm about sick of folks going to Bible study and then living hellishly. Hello. You know, Bible study this and Bible study that and Bible study this, and then you push into office folks who push down the folks that Jesus died for. You want to show me your Bible study fellowship is worth something? Show me some religion that's like Jesus. Well, let me let you go to your next moment with this closing. If Dr. King were here, and if Jesus was with him, I wonder what Dr. King and Jesus would be talking about this weekend. I wonder what Dr. King and Jesus would be talking about this weekend as we contemplate the aftermath of the leader of the United States talking about people being toilet hole countries. And they're the folks who like Lazarus. I wonder how Dr. King and Jesus would be talking about Haiti when somebody in the White House says Haitians have AIDS, when Haitians don't all have AIDS, but not only that, people with AIDS deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. In other words, my brothers and sisters, we have to take a close look at this notion of God, faith, and prosperity, because the idea is that in this country, if you're prosperous, you must be righteous. And this lesson says, hey, you can be unrighteously prosperous. And any notion of prosperity that is unrighteous is not really prosperity. It's an abomination. It's hypocrisy. Well, let that be a lesson to all of us, that we love God so much that we will not love wealth to the exclusion of our brothers and sisters. We love our brothers and sisters so much that we will not allow the wealth that we come into to separate us from them. We will share the wealth. When that happens, the rich man won't have to wait until the afterlife to call Lazarus' name. He'll say, Lazarus, my neighbor. Lazarus is hungry. Lazarus is sick. I will not let the dogs treat Lazarus better than me. I will love Lazarus as my brother, as my sister. And in that love, Lazarus will live comfortably and healthily and safely because God has blessed us, not God has blessed me. Amen.